How long have you been doing the YouTube
Yeah.
videos?
Yeah, since about 10 years ago. I think I started in 2015, maybe 2000, beginning of 2016. Yeah. I was just doing like stupid little vlogs in the city. And then, yeah, I started saying like, oh, let me do like little memory how-tos. And then it just kind of exploded. And along the way, I had certain ones go viral relatively at the time. And it's just like fueled, you know, the
Was that
next
around the same
video.
time that you started diving into memory as a skill that you could kind of build up?
No, I'd been doing memory for maybe 5, 6 years before that. Um, but the landscape was different. In 2010, YouTube was very new. I think I had a blog, right? Which is funny because now everybody has a Substack, so everybody's
Exactly.
fucking blogging again. It's
That's what I was
I was
thinking.
like, wait, this is a thing. I love writing blogs, but like nobody cared anymore. So yeah,
Things come full circle like that quite often.
it's so weird. Yeah,
Just
tell me
change the
about your
name.
your podcast.
I'm
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I'm sorry, what?
Tell me about your podcast. What's your journey? What's the focus? What are we going to talk about today?
We're going to
I
talk
mean, I
about
would assume memory, but
yeah, I would imagine that's kind of what everybody gets you on going, right? Is okay, let's touch the memory subject.
yeah, it doesn't have to be. It can be about whatever you want. It's up to you.
That's kind of what this podcast is really anything and everything. It's kind of an eclectic mix
Cool.
of guests. People always ask me, "Oh, what's the theme of the podcast?" And I'm like, "Open conversation. As long as we get that, we're good. Anything else is just a bonus, a cherry on top."
Cool.
Do you spend a lot of time talking about things that aren't memory related nowadays, or is that what everybody wants from you?
No, it's mostly memory. If I'm going to be real, but there have been other things recently that I've been associated to that have come up, and I'm like really excited when that comes up. So, because it's new, I've said the same things for many years. Not that I don't love talking about it, I still do because I think a lot of people can learn from it and get a lot out of it. Um, but it's always nice to say something different, you know.
Especially if it's something you've been talking about for a while, and it might not feel as fresh to you. It might be fresh for the audience that's listening or the interviewer who's hosting it, but for you, you're like, okay, I've said this, similar answer maybe 20 different times now.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's automatic, or I hear myself in like all the other podcasts I've done saying the same thing.
That's one of the funny things when I do prep work for a guest. You can kind of find those patterns. You'll realize, oh, they said a similar thing, in these other two podcasts that I just listened to, and then you'll ask them the question and you'll get that same line of answers. You got to branch out a little bit.
Yeah. And I try like when I find myself doing that, I'm like, well, maybe how can I say this differently so that it's like a different sound bite or somebody can get a different nugget instead of hearing the same thing across all of my podcasts.
And it's challenging because I think most people do that. Most people have those built up responses and you almost don't notice because they're not on camera. So those responses aren't being broadcast out into the ether. They get away with it a little bit
That's
more.
true. Yeah, definitely getting away with it a lot more. But yeah, a lot of the ones I've been doing, I don't even know if you do the video or if this is just audio, but most I've done are, I guess, audio.
Yeah, this will be video and audio.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
One of the things that I found really interesting, this isn't quite memory, but it is actually in a sense as well. You hiked Mount Everest.
I did. It was, I always have to kind of give an aside for that because haven't summited yet. I've come very close numerous times, and the goal was to summit. People trek to base camp and stuff like that, but no, this was a actual expedition. Well, each of the 4 times I tried was an expedition, and for each year I was there, there's a reason why I didn't summit or an excuse, whatever you want to call it. But anyways, it's my personal journey. Like some people go and climb Everest and they summit and they move on. For me, apparently this has been over 10 years of a goal of mine, and I have a relationship with this mountain. Maybe I'm never meant to summit it. Maybe I will one day. I like to think that I will, but I love the journey that I'm on, that I have been on in relation to that. It's not one of these things where I wish, like, of course I wish I had summited, but I'm almost happy that I haven't, because it's brought me back there so many times. A friend of mine I climbed with in 2016, super strong South African guy, summited, and we were talking about he wants to go back and try maybe a different route, and I want to go back because I have to still do it. But he was like, "Man, I'm so jealous of you that like you still have like the dream. I don't have that dream anymore. I can try to have a dream to do it again, but it's never going to be the first time that I never, that you never got, you haven't done it yet." I was like, yeah, that's a good perspective.
I'm envisioning, is it Sisyphus, the story of the rock, where he's pushing it up the hill and then it rolls down
Yeah, I
and
think
then he's
so.
pushing
Yeah.
it back up? I'm kind of envisioning a little bit of that, where you're like, okay, I'm getting up to base camp and then I'm going back down. I'm going to try to get a little farther next time.
Yeah. And it's funny because as I was younger, I feel like I was stronger, more energetic. Uh, but now I'm older, I have a little more wisdom, patience, but I also have more responsibilities. I have 4 kids now. Back when I first started, I had 0 kids. I had a girlfriend, not a wife. Um, and so there's a lot more to it than just effing off for 2 months to do my own thing. It's like, okay, who's going to take care of the family while I'm gone? What about finances? What if I die? Like all these things. It's not as simple anymore. So it's a completely different challenge than what it was when I first was there in 2011.
And the question of what happens if I die is a lot stronger when you have a wife and 4 kids who are waiting back at home.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the act of that potentially happening, like to my body and myself, like I've come to terms with that risk. But what it'll do to my family and kids, obviously, is the thing that I'm most concerned about. And that's tough because, there's parts of me that want to set an example for my kids to show that, like, going for what you dream for at any cost or with big risks is worth something, but I also don't want to be reckless and selfish, so maybe the fact that I haven't summited in 4 times just speaks to how cautious I am, and maybe that's a good thing. Not that I want to keep dishing out all this money to do these things and come back empty-handed. Although I don't come back empty-handed. Like I said, these are all the experiences that are so memorable and powerful in my life. But I would like to stand on the top of the world one day. That is just a dream that will not escape my mind, and I have yet to experience it. Even though we're talking about like 50 meters difference of where I have stood. But, it is what it is.
Is that really the difference? Is 50 meters or thereabout between you and the summit?
That's the closest I got. Yeah, it was 50 meters.
That's pretty close. You might be
other
able to
years
just
were maybe
count
a
that.
couple hundred. Yeah, I know. That's a
50's up
common.
there.
That's a common suggestion. And there have been times where I'm like, yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I was on top of the world, but there's more of a meaning to me for that point at some level,
Yeah, I mean, it does make a difference for the people. Obviously, for the people that are trying to do it, those 50 meters are pretty critical. But for us lay people who aren't up there and aren't trying to get up there, it's like 50 meters. Come on.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and I should remind myself how lucky I am to even have stepped foot on the slopes of this thing. It's very, very few people in the world in history. So,
is it a weather challenge at that point? Is that what causes you to turn around, or what happens when you get that close and make the decision, we got to go back?
man, I mean, it's a plethora of things. Weather can be and has been. Talking about these 4 different attempts, it has creeped in. Other times, it's just my mental state. Like an expedition dragged on for whatever reason. I was dealing with things wrong or weakly. Other times it was I got sick and my body was damaged. Or struggling. Yeah, hard to say. It's a mishmash of all of those. But yeah.
That's got to be one of the top 5 worst places to get sick, I would imagine. is trying to climb Mount Everest.
Dude, yeah, it's terrible. You already feel like shit, at those high altitudes. So just the tiniest thing, you have a cough, it like shakes your whole body, right? Like violently every time you cough, and it hurts, and it's like you struggle to breathe. You have a slight upset stomach, man, you are peeing out of your butt, and you're in the coldest place ever, wearing a million layers, and it's like not fun. Uh, you're stuffing yourself with Imodium, like your appetite's gone. So you're hungry, or you're depleted. You need fuel, but you just can't stomach anything, or very little. And you can't sleep. It's very hard to sleep. It's uncomfortable, and you miss home. It's cold, but it's beautiful, and it's a one of a kind experience. And yeah, I don't know. So many conflicting experiences happen all at the same time.
Yes, suffering like that, you really do learn a lot about who you are, and more so who you're trying to be or who you're becoming in that climb.
Yeah, 100%. You're faced with only you, and sometimes that's uncomfortable. Sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes it's pleasant and exciting to meet that person. Definitely reveals things that you can't easily reveal at sea level in normal day to day environments.
Did you have any revelations or any kind of epiphanies that came out of those experiences?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, like I said, different stages of my life for each of those. So they were probably relevant to the moment more than anything. But I think probably the common thread across all of them is that, life is about the journey. I think the hardest thing that I've had to deal with coming off those mountains is the disappointment of everything I put into these climbs. It was training for months in my mind, repeating this idea that I was going to stand on the summit. I was going to be that guy. That was my goal, and I was going to achieve it. Having to fork over all this money and time, and now risk, right? And time away from my kids, and kids' time away from me. Um, that's been the hardest thing to deal with, but I've had to rationalize it, right? But I feel like the biggest thing that's come out of it is just me realizing that it's part of the process. I learn from these situations. I learn more about me. I learn more about what I really want. I think that's more, honestly, again, going back to my friend who's jealous of me for failing so much, it's like, yeah, he did it, and he's done. He got that experience, and for me, I still have an experience going on, and it's ever creating new learning experiences for me. So, good and bad, you know. I haven't thought about it this hard in a while, so thanks for the question.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's what I'm here for. Do you feel that passion, the burning sensation of wanting to be that guy and wanting to be on the top? Do you feel that as strongly as when you first took it, first tried to make that climb? Or has it kind of subsided a little bit?
A little bit, only because Everest has become so commercialized. I mean, when I first started, it was already commercialized more than it should be. But now it's I feel a little ridiculous, and I feel like everyone and their mother goes to climb Everest now. So it's like, part of me as a younger guy was like, I want to do Everest because nobody's doing Everest. That was a big part of it when I started, and I wanted to do something different that nobody else was. Now I feel like it's not that anymore, which is fine. It's morphed into something that I want to complete for myself. And there is a natural desire to climb a mountain and experience the beauty of the world and the humbling experience of being on top of the world. But it's definitely changed over the years how I feel about it. I wish it wasn't so commercialized, because I don't know. I almost get criticized for talking about going there now. I see a lot of people posting every season on Instagram, and posts that go viral, the comments, it used to be like, wow, very interesting and how beautiful up there. Now it's more like, this guy's selfish. What an asshole. Like, so much shit on the mountain. Nobody should be there. Um, a lot of that's true. Not all of it, or a lot of it's just easy to say. You don't know what you're talking about, but I feel like the tone of what it used to mean is different. And so, yeah, I kind of wish I had gotten it out of the way. There's other mountains I'd honestly like to be tackling that are a little more remote and less known, and I don't have to talk about it, but here we are.
It's weird how people kind of just want to shit on someone who's trying to do anything. And like you said, especially if there's some aspect of money involved, which yes, it is expensive and you are, essentially traveling across the world to go do this thing, but also it's an incredibly challenging thing to do. And yeah, you're paying a bunch of money, but you still have to climb the mountain. You might have guys helping pack up some of the stuff, but they're not carrying you up. You still have to do that, and that's incredibly challenging to do in and of itself.
Yeah, no matter what you read, that Sherpas do all the work, which they do. They do all the work. But you still have to get up there. You have to move your legs, right? The Sherpas won't do that for you. They may help you a little bit at some point. They will definitely help you, unfortunately, come down if you're in a tight spot. It shouldn't be like that, but that's how it is. But yeah, it is still a monumental challenge. Anybody who climbs Everest, no matter who they are, how much money they have, it's still an incredible feat. You can't take that away. And it's easy to say, that everybody's doing it and that it's a joke because the Sherpas are basically carrying you up. No, it's still really hard. And some people have money to throw away, and that's what they do with this mountain. But a lot of people work hard, get sponsors, put a lot of their own savings. This is what I did. I don't have a lot of money, but I put a lot of money into those climbs. But I chose to do that. I saved a lot. I worked hard. I didn't go out for a long time just so that I would build up the money that I needed to do this. I asked people for help. And sometimes to a point of embarrassment, but I had my goal and I went for it. And it's annoying to see people like shit on that, thinking like, oh, what a spoiled kid, just doing whatever he wants. It's like, no, like I worked hard, and there's a lot of people who did that. They earned their way to be on one of these expeditions. Not everyone. Okay, I'm not saying that, but a lot more than you would think.
I've seen some crazy videos of the lines of people waiting to summit where they're all just there's probably, 20, 30 people at least, and they're just waiting. And you see this, there's snow, it's windy, and everyone's just waiting, single file trying to get up there.
Yeah. That, again, I haven't been since 2021. I was there in 2016, before that, 2013 and 2011. Even in 2021, sorry, I never had any lines like that. Actually, that's not true. In the icefall, there was a bit, but you know what? We got off the rope and went up around them, and that was really only, some teams are large. Like there's often the Indian Army team that's there. They're an army. So they literally stay in line, and there's like 40 of them in line, which is annoying on a mountain like that. But, you can check when their schedule is, avoid them, and you don't have any lines. It also boils down to weather windows and things like that, and who your team is and what they know, what weather reports they're getting. And if you can kind of coordinate with other teams, you can have the mountain entirely to yourself, or very few people on your summit day or certain climbs. So yeah, some of these pictures or videos you see are unfortunate, and they are going to exist. But it doesn't mean that it's like that, 24/7. People often comment like, it's like Disneyland, you're just getting in line, and it sure looks like that, but that's just a small snippet of probably the worst case. In most cases, it's not like that at all.
And of course, those small snippets are the ones that go viral, and then everybody sees them and think, oh, this is what it is.
Dude. Yeah, I mean, I look at those and I'm like, oh God, that looks terrible, but I'm like, I've never been a part of that. never actually seen that firsthand. So, it must have just been some of these off chance days.
Was it as crazy in 2011? Because social media obviously was still kind of just picking up.
Yeah. No, I'd say it was a lot more chill. Base camp was quiet. Now it's like this crazy mile-long city, and people are doing all sorts of stunts, flying drones, um, posing here and there, posting pics, stopping for this and that. Back then, I had a GoPro. It was such shitty quality. I took some videos at the time. I think I was like, I had one of the very rare GoPro Everest videos. But if you looked at it now, you'd think this is absolute garbage.
Yeah. What did you film this on a camcorder or what?
Yeah. Like it's so overexposed. It's bad, but it's what I got.
And it's a nice little kind of hallmark of where you were at that time. You can look back and watch that and think, oh, this was pretty crazy.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the videos and pictures I take were for me, and are for me. Yeah, I mean, that's even what I do on my YouTube channel, even the memory stuff. I honestly make all the videos that I do because it's something that I want to talk about and film. And for the reason that in the future, when I move on to something else, I'd love to look back if I forget it or want to remind myself of the thing. I did a video about it. So it's like me being able to communicate with my future self. I don't care about my audience. I mean, I do, but I'm making the videos for myself rather than for them,
I feel a similar way about doing this, is it's kind of for me to experience these things. And sometimes I'll think, oh, maybe it'd be cool someday if my kids watch it and they could see, oh, this was their dad at this point in time, having these types of conversations.
I think that's the way it should be. I think with anything that you create, if you can remember that often, I think you'll end up making content that you're happy about, and you'll keep making content, right? Because if you start making stuff for other people, it gets so tiring and boring and dry, and you lose that passion,
And with memory, they say one of the best ways to reinforce something is to try to teach it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. This is the Feynman method, right? If you have a concept that you want to really ingrain, Feynman was a famous physicist who was known for being able to explain really difficult physics concepts really well in his lectures. And he was just very adamant that if you wanted to explain, make sure that you understood something, had it really learned and memorized, that you would try to explain it to somebody else as a technique. And as you do that, you realize, like, okay, these are the weak points. I don't actually understand what I just said there. I was kind of just saying it. And you can go back and fortify the pieces to it and get a better understanding, right? So yeah, that's what I'm doing in my videos. Making sure that it's so true, right? Like during COVID, I made one about solving Rubik's Cubes blindfolded. And I remember in my college years, a few of my buddies, we were into Rubik's Cubes. We went down that rabbit hole, and I didn't really go that hard, and I forgot all about it. So when I revisited, I was like, oh, cool, this will be a way for me to relearn it. And then there I am explaining it. Right now, there's so many Rubik's Cube channels. Like, who am I to start explaining about it? So I really have to know my shit, right? So it made me really get into it. Yeah. And it's like, I actually stopped doing it for a while and recently started picking it back up. And I use my own video to teach me,
Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah, it was awesome. And I was like, oh man, I did a good job. Like, because I remember when I first had to relearn it for the video, I was like, man, this is tricky stuff. Like, some of the videos out there explain it well, but like, I just couldn't grasp it. I had to like piece it together. But I feel like my video, maybe other people feel differently, but it speaks to how I needed to learn it. And it'll always be the case,
Were you making videos before you got interested in the whole memory field, or did that come later?
I always liked photography and videography. I would make little videos of like my vacations or little events in our family. I liked doing that, choosing a song and editing it artsy so it looked kind of emotional and fun. I love that. And when I started doing the vlogging stuff to start my channel, I was really into Casey Neistat at the time. I was living in New York City, so he was, right around the corner. I was like, oh man, I wanted to do that, like, because it was such like a casual, off the cuff style. Like, you didn't have to be a cinematographer. It was just very like loose and scruffy in terms of how he like handled the camera and film. I was like, okay, nobody cares. Like, they just want to see my life. Okay, well, nobody want to see my life, his life. Um, but it kind of developed my style and allowed me to get stuff out rather than just saying, "Oh, I'll never be able to create anything that anyone wants to watch."
I do like that there's kind of that resurgence for that style, the run and gun. You see that a lot with live streamers now, where it's just, we're not polishing anything, we're just putting it out as it is.
Yeah, no, it's again, it's funny how stuff like disappears and then comes back, because that run and gun vlog style did die, um, and it went very cinematic for a bit. And I'm still in that pocket because I do appreciate the style and art and look of stuff like that. Um, but yeah, it's definitely coming back. I'm here for it.
I'm in that same boat. I like the cinematic look. I mean, I've built myself a little studio over here just because I'm trying to tweak those elements, get the lighting right, get the coloring down. But I also am a favorite of that style as well, where you can just shoot what it is and put it out and not try to polish it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I feel like when I do that, and some of my friends who are on YouTube as well, you can kind of mesh the two together, and it makes for a really interesting style because you can like do the talking head stuff really casual, but then like cut to cinematic sequences, and kind of blend together. Even the vlog stuff you could edit or color so that it looks cinematic but loose, and it almost comes across as just like artsy, which is nice. I don't know. And then there's this whole style. It might have even just passed, but everybody's shooting in like 4x3 and putting like a grain on it so that it looks like it's shot in old film stock. I love that. I think that's so cool. And I've shot a bit on film stock too, but it's expensive as hell to produce and develop and all that stuff. But yeah.
I see a lot of people doing Instagram reels with that, and they just use that cinematic filter to add a little touch to their videos.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think you find it good
to be.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that doing that, like trying to tap into kind of like the old style look of film is nostalgic, right? To a lot of us, which is a key into our memory banks, so it's a way to hook people in and make people remember some of the stuff that you're creating.
I was going to say, you balance the cinematic and run and gun shoot style pretty well. I was watching your video from the Memory Championship, your most recent one, and I thought you struck a really good balance of raw footage of you on the ground versus then cutting to those interviews, talking to people, feeling them out, cutting to you.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Yeah, no, it's nice to hear. That's kind of what I meant. Like, I try to mix a bit of everything. But yeah, glad to hear that struck a chord.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, and it was crazy hearing that this was your 6th win. Correct?
Yeah.
That's got to feel weird.
Many more competitions. I think like double that I've competed in. Which, it's interesting. People are like, "Oh, you most winningest," but I think I've lost more than I've won. So what does that mean? But yeah, it was my 6th win. I was very, very excited about that because I didn't think I still had what it takes to win. And I pulled it out.
That what it takes to win, is that in reference to an age thing, or just the rise of competition?
Yeah, partly. I don't think I've been the oldest to win. I think there was a guy many, many years ago who was like in his late 50s or something. But it's a combination of age, but also just, I have other things going on in my life. And with the time commitment I was able to give to it in the past, I don't know if that would have cut it. So there's something to be said, I think, for my experience and savvy of the competition ins and outs. And like my experience of competing, that helped pull me through, it's kind of a cool thing to think about. I think about all my wins, and they all had like an interesting way I won it. There was one year where like I was under the radar, so nobody knew who I was. So I really was just against myself and ended up in the finals and won. The next year, like I just dominated, right? I was literally winning every event, didn't get anything wrong, and just won, right? And there were other years where it's like there were people that I shouldn't have beat, but I did. Either they were just new to the sport, or there was a big scandal, or and like something that happened. All different, which is cool. Like it hasn't been all six of the same exact experiences. They all gave me something new. Which again taps into what I was saying about the climbs, right? They're all part of a journey, and even though it's 6 times I did the same thing, they're all different, and I can talk about each one as this completely different experience.
Is the pressure the same going into this one?
This last one, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, different. I don't know if it was a lot more. There was this pressure, that I had come out of retirement and I had something to prove. And I knew personally if I didn't win, how annoyed and disappointed I'd feel, because I should have just stayed retired, right? Like that was always kind of why I won the one before and retired, because I was like, I always wanted to win or end my career on a win, and I had won 5. That was the most winningest. I had accomplished that goal. I never am a big fan of the people in sports and in TV or whatever that overstay, and kind of have like a declining career, and you're kind of like sad for them, oh God, they should have stopped. He used to be so good, and so that's why I was happy with when I ended. And something about it last year made me say like, I think I can be a part of this. Some part of me missed it as well. And yeah, thankfully, my reputation in the sport and the history, right, is mostly maintained. As he was one of the best. He stayed the best until he just stopped.
That's the best way to go out. Like you said, you don't want to be the guy that's clinging onto a downward spiral.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I felt like that for a bit because I won my 4th one in 2015. And then I wanted to win a 5th one. That was my goal, because there was another guy who won 4, and I wanted to have the most wins ever, right? And so I took a break in 16. 17, there was none. There was no competition. Then I did 18, lost. 19, lost at the very end. 20 was virtual. I didn't really count. And then I won in 2021. So it was like a few years I was just like, I felt like that guy. I was kind of spiraling. I was so close, but I was just like never going to get it again. But alas, I did.
You got it.
Yeah. And one more,
And
like,
yeah, right?
Great.
Go out on top. Do you think that was your last one?
Yeah. I can't imagine, like, I think about it. I'm like, well, one more, but no, there's nothing really that I would stand to gain, I don't think, other than just, being completely in a mode of FOMO that I want to experience it again. But I think at this point, 6 is great. 7, I guess that sounds a little cooler, but I don't think I care that much. Again, with my kids and my schedule, like, to put myself in a spot to know or be really in contention takes a lot more out of everything that I do. Time with my kids, time against my business. And for what, it's harder and harder to justify,
What does a training schedule look like for a memory competition? How does it vary from just your day-to-day life?
Yeah. Back in the day, I used to just train all day. I had sponsors, so this was my job. I treated it like I was like an athlete, and I was being paid to prepare for these competitions. So that's all I did all day. And leading up to a competition, I'd ramp that up and just really drill. whatever was coming up at the competition. In more recent years, I don't have the time to do that. I'm working on other projects. So the training I'd ramp up much closer to the competition. I always do memory training. I do something every day to keep it afloat, to keep it maintained. But to ramp it up, I would basically just practice the events at the competition obsessively, morning and night. That's really the only time I get to focus quietly in my office. But I would say over the years, I haven't needed to spend too many hours training to be as good as I used to be when I needed to train harder. That being said, I don't think I've gotten measurably better in recent years. I haven't trained that hard. I think there'd have to be a paradigm shift in how I approach it to really break through to another level. But again, I'm not interested in that right now. Maybe one day I'll say okay, there was this plateau I reached. I never got to break through it. Maybe I want to explore that. And I have to rethink how I do that. But right now it's pretty easy to maintain pretty good skill that would put me in contention with a memory competition if I were to, stick to it for at least a month or something like that beforehand.
Do you notice a difference in your everyday working memory when you're ramping up for one of these competitions, or is it task specific? So as you're memorizing a deck of cards, you could do that a little bit better, or memorizing places and locations and population sizes.
Yeah, it's very task specific. In general, training my memory does affect my everyday memory. I do notice a difference. If I were to stop training at all, I do see a decline. It keeps my brain sharp. But when I am in full on training mode before competition, it's so hyper focused, memorizing cards, memorizing numbers. And there's specific domains and how it's seen on screen and in my hands. It doesn't translate very well to day-to-day tasks. So I don't really feel any better at it. Maybe even slightly worse because I'm so focused on this one thing. I might be more forgetful for day-to-day stuff if I'm in the zone, but yeah.
One of the things that I've been working through your book, Remember It, and this idea of see, link, go, and crafting a story around whatever you're trying to remember. And for me, maybe it's just because I've never actively tried to work on my memory. It almost seems counterintuitive. The idea that rather than just try to remember, say your example in the book is a parking lot for a specific one. Where did you park? B4. Okay, rather than try to remember B4, craft a story around it. A 4 kind of looks like a sail, so picture sailboat or a sail on your car going through the windshield. Try to craft some story where you're engaged with it and it's going to stick with you. That seems almost like it's more to remember than just B4, but it works better.
Yeah, no, it's very counterintuitive in that sense. Memory techniques. I mean, oftentimes people have that same reaction that it feels like that memory techniques are going out of the way. It's a long detour versus me just brute force memorizing it. The problem is, you do that brute force, maybe it seems direct, but it's the road is straight. It's the shortest distance, but it's covered in mud or something like that. So it's very slippery, no traction, right? Or hard to get across. Whereas you go this longer way, it's smooth. Maybe there's even an escalator and a slide. So it's very smooth to get to where you want, even though you do have to go a little bit out of the way. Yeah. And the reason it's like that is because memory techniques take advantage of what your brain, how your brain works, things that it likes to do. And so while that may take a little more time in terms of setting it up, it's going to benefit your memory in the long run, because the stuff will actually stick for a long time.
When you're trying to remember something like that, is it almost second nature at this point to build a story, or do you still have to put effort into the thought behind crafting that story?
No, man, I'm always creating stories, memorable scenarios. I wouldn't say that means I always remember things, but I am always converting anything that is in front of my eyes or my perceptive, in front of my senses. I'm always converting it into stories almost automatically at this point. And that part is so easy. It's just habit.
It's just second nature at this point. You've been doing it for so long.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When did you start? What caused you to take an interest in building this skill and honing your memory?
Yeah, I mean, this was back in '09. Well, it was the first year I competed. Well, that's when I started getting interested in memory competitions. I'd heard about it maybe a few weeks before, signed up and went in there. But my grandmother was the catalyst for many years before for me to get interested in memory. She had Alzheimer's, lost her cognitive abilities, passed away, and witnessing all that, experiencing all that, I started reading a bunch of books about neuroscience and the brain and how memory works, and was just fascinated, that here was this enigmatic thing inside of our skull that we use every day for everything that we do, and we still don't really understand a lot of it, the processes, especially memory. And there'd always be like a side caption in these books saying like, this memory athlete trained his memory and could memorize thousands and thousands of whatever. I'd be like, who is this guy? Like, how did he do that? I would assume at first that it was like a savant, just naturally gifted. That's what I thought. But then reading these things on again and again, I'd see, oh, he just trained his memory. He had use of memory techniques. What are those? And that's kind of what brought me down the rabbit hole. So like, hey, watching my grandma go through this, I don't want to deal with this in my later on stages of life. What could I be doing now to prevent this? Could I be a memory champion? I don't think so, but let me try, or let me look into it.
How long had you been looking into it prior to that first competition in '09?
Good question. I remember there being like a scramble in early 2009. I was living in Chicago by myself. I moved away from home, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to train and see if I can squeeze into this competition. And I think I just made the deadline for registering. It was in March, so that must have been like early Feb or end of January or something. But I know before that I had heard about it and it was on my mind. I just don't think I think I forgot about it for a little bit and was like, oh, I think the memory competition is coming up. I should try to do that. Let me just go to New York and see what happens. And I never thought I'd win. I didn't that year. I was like middle of the pack. But I was like, I got to check this out. I got to see what these people are doing, what they're all about. And so glad I did, because I met this other memory champion, Ron White, who inspired me and became good friends. I met another guy, Ben Pridmore, who like a legend in the World Memory Championships. He'd won it a couple times. He was the first to memorize a deck of cards in under 25 seconds. And there he was, just spectating. And I'll never forget it. At the end of the competition, I just went to talk to him. And I forget how we got on the topic, but he had a deck of cards in his hand. And I was asking him, like how he went about his strategy of memorizing cards. And he just like thumbed through like 6 cards, like in just a second. And he knew them already, And I was just like, damn, he like barely even glanced at these 6 cards and he has them in his mind already. It was wild. I remember after that competition, I was staying with a friend on like 110th Street, and the competition was down in Union Ave, 14th Street. And I just walked on the phone, like calling anybody I knew. I walked all the way up, just like telling anybody about what I had just witnessed and like how amazing it was. And I didn't realize I walked and then boom, I was back at the place, like however long that took, Yeah, clearly changed my life.
Yeah, clearly, right? I mean, your life kind of was built around it after that.
Yeah. Who would have thought? I mean, you never know where something is going to take you. I'm just glad that myself at that age was like open to that. It was such a silly, weird thing. I probably didn't even have the money to take a little day trip. Well, a couple day trip to New York from Chicago. I was struggling at that point. I was in a bit of a situation, but it's like, you know what? Fuck it. I think this will be really cool. And there you go.
The rest is history. How old were you?
Yeah. What would that have been? 2009. Yeah, I was like 25.
Okay, 26. So pretty young.
Yeah, I'm 41 now. Oh man.
and still have a
How old are
great
you?
memory. Old man still have a great memory. I'm
Yeah.
27 right now.
Oh
So
shit. Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty
So
close to that
you're in
age when
that
you
pocket.
started, which is good because I've been thinking I need to. That's why I read your book, and what kind of turned me on to you was realizing, oh, maybe I need to start putting some work into my memory.
Yeah. It's one of these skills, like if you really get into it and work on it, as I said, like I don't have to do much now to maintain it. Right. When I started, also I had the passion for it. So I put a lot of work in it. But it's one of these things, a skill that can be with you for the rest of your life. Right. And that was always the goal. So that when I got old, if dementia or Alzheimer's is supposed to happen to this brain of mine, that I'll have the tool set that's kind of on automatic, that hopefully will offset any onset of that disease.
It would be interesting to see how someone who has done these competitions and a champion at that level, were they to get Alzheimer's or dementia, how they would handle it. Are there any cases of that you know of?
Not yet. Maybe I'll be the first. Right. The competition has only been around since I don't know what 1994 or something. Uh, that being said, there's always kind of been a memory guy. There was this famous memory guy, Harry Lorraine, who's a magician. He passed away recently in his 90s. Well, not recently, maybe 5-10 years ago. But I don't think he had Alzheimer's. That being said, he wasn't a training memory competitor. He was just somebody who dabbled and taught the techniques. I think I might be the first to really be pushing, Alzheimer's prevention by training hard for a memory competition.
Well, hopefully you don't get it, but you would be an interesting case study.
Yeah. I fear that, like, what if I did? That would be a pretty shitty revelation for, neuroscience.
Yeah, to be on
Memory
top of the
champion gets
world.
dementia.
Yeah, not great.
Yeah.
Be a great headline though. Sell a lot of clicks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those memory diseases are the ones that have always freaked me out the most. More so than things like cancer is just losing who you are and forgetting the people around you.
Yeah. There's something terrifying about that, right? Like cancer, all right, it's just killing your body. Fine. But you're still there, you know? With this, I saw with my grandmother, she was not there. I mean, she was there, right? But it's a different kind of there. Like something's missing, and it's just a weird thing because it makes you question, like, okay, well, who are we? Like, what is it that makes us us? She must surely still be in there. Was it that she just something was suppressing, like her soul? Like it's weird to what does it actually mean? Makes you wrestle with the meaning of a lot of things.
I had a grandfather who was diagnosed with dementia, and I was a little too young to fully grasp it, but vividly remember watching him, and he would have, in the early stages, he would have lucid days where it would just be him. And then on
Mm.
bad days, you would see him, and it was just like a shell of a person. There was just no connection. It's like, oh, this person looks like my grandfather, is my grandfather, but also he's not really there. You're just talking to this almost like somebody else in his body.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I don't know. It's not a fun thing to watch or to experience, and obviously it affects the person with the disease, but it also affects the
Everybody
immediate
around
family
them.
around it. It's ravaging.
That's kind of what sparked the whole Everest conversation. Is I know that you did one of those expeditions. They were studying how your memory would be affected by low oxygen environments, right?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, that was 2013. I had been doing some scans in the fMRI machines for a memory lab at Washington University in St. Louis. They were really awesome memory research lab and amazing researchers. And I was like, hey, I'm going to Everest. Do you want to give me a test battery and see if we can write a paper or analyze some results? So they gave me a laptop filled with a bunch of memory concentration problem solving games, and I would do them every day. And most of the time we're at base camp, but sometimes we go higher, we come back to base camp, and there's obviously the summit push. So the data really interesting. There's not a lot of data. There was never a lot of data because it was just me. But I think from that, and I didn't write a paper in the end, but the data's there. I'll never forget doing these stupid tests at Camp 3 on the north side, 8,300 meters, okay, with my stupid little oxygen mask on, totally depleted. And I could not for the life of me do this one task, which was, sounds so easy, but you basically stare at a plus in the middle of your screen. And every so often, a number will show, like a single digit, 5, back to the plus, a little longer, 6, plus. But then when it would show a 3, specifically a 3, I'd have to press the space bar as fast as possible. Right. So it was like a reaction test. And I would see the 3 and I'd be like, I should press the space bar. And then I just like the slowest reaction, it was so weird. I was almost watching myself be an idiot. And I remember, a couple days later, we were back at base camp. I did the same test and I was like, like the fastest it was crazy. It's like, but I was aware of what I was trying to, I was like, I know I need to be fast. I know I just saw that 3. Why am I not pressing the thing yet? It's a very bizarre scenario.
Do you think that was because of the environment, or was that just a fatigue of being out there?
No, I'm sure it's a combination, but I would say it's probably 80% the lack of oxygen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be a crazy feeling. Knowing, okay, I gotta press this button, and then just not being able to press it as quickly as you know that you're capable of.
Yeah. That being said, though, I've done this on all my expeditions. I would always memorize a deck of cards at each camp. That's an easy thing to like just bring a deck. You bring them to camps anyways to play cards when you're bored. And I would just time myself. And I've done a few decks of cards in the depth zone above 8,000 meters on Everest. And I'm able to do it slower than what I do at sea level, but still, like sub 60 seconds, it's more like in the 50s when my bests are like in the 30s, 30 seconds. So quite slower, but still, it's still kind of interesting to think like, yes, I'm oxygen deprived, but I can still do this memory technique incredibly fast. So what does that say about memory techniques? How powerful they are, even given something so extreme to the mind that's being deprived of oxygen.
Well, talking about how crazy they are, it's impressive enough that you can memorize a full deck in a short time frame like that. But then when you do it backwards, it feels like it takes a whole other level.
I know it feels like that, but it's really not that challenging.
It's not challenging at all. See, no, that's crazy to hear that.
Yeah, I know. That's why I do it, right? So I do that a lot with numbers. So people will tell me a number, I'll recite it, and they're like, wow. And then I'll be like, I'll say it backwards. And then they're like, wow. But to me, and to any memory athlete, it's the way you organize numbers. They're all there, like in an arena just in front of you. So whether you want to go that way or this way and then this way and this way and that way, like it doesn't matter, And I know that sounds crazy. Like people don't understand on first listen, like how I'm able to do that. But that's because nobody's ever taught them. And these techniques, once you understand them, that stuff is possible with anything, not just numbers and cards. So, yeah.
So when you're doing that with numbers specifically, and you're building the story to remember those numbers, are you seeing the story in reverse to go backwards, or how does that play out?
Yeah, because for that, for example, we use what's called a memory palace. So I store images that represent certain chunks of numbers, and I'm placing them or imagining them in different rooms along a route through space. That's my memory palace. And it might be a hotel that I've stayed in or a house that I used to live in. And each image is in a room. So if you imagine when you walk through your house, like if I'm walking from my front door to my bedroom, that's one path. I can look at each room along the way. If I want to go the other direction, I just walk from my room to the front door and I can peek in each room. It's just the difference in how I traverse the path, right? Whatever's in the room is in the room. I just have to look inside the room, whether I do that forwards or backwards.
Can you chunk it out? Could you go to the middle if you wanted to, where you're seeing all these different rooms? Could you pick a specific room and say, oh, the 8th number there is this?
Yeah, I can do that. It helps if in my memory palace I have a better mapping of it. Some memory palaces are a little more casual, but some I know, like, okay, that's the 5th location. I know that's the 10th location. So for those are a lot better because I can jump to a specific location and know exactly where I am in the number and then go either direction. But I can always jump to a room and continue on or continue back. Oftentimes, like when I forget something, maybe I'll go through a deck of cards and I'm like, I can't remember this one card, right? So I'll skip it in my demonstration. I'll be like, okay, Ace of Hearts, 5 of Spades, blah, blah, blah. I'll come back to this one and then I keep going. And then when I'm done, I come back and I get that card. People are often more blown away by that ability than just being able to recite it. So, but again, it's just how I organize it. I know the room it's in. I just got to go back and look inside and hopefully it comes to me,
How long does that memory palace stay with you after you're done? So say you go to a competition, you built it up. Is it just maybe an hour that you have that in your working memory, or can you recall that a day later?
Yeah. So the memory palace that I have, all the memory palaces I have don't go anywhere, right? They are a fixture in my mind. It's what I place in there, right? That will stay or go. Stuff like cards that I've memorized will, if I don't review them, because review is the key that keeps something there. If I don't review them, and usually I don't want to because it's like just
Why?
random information, why would I keep it past when I need it? But I'd say just without thinking about it, they probably last a few more days and then start to fade, especially since I start memorizing or training again, I'll probably tape over it. But if I wanted to keep something forever, I would, keep reviewing it, right? And then I could actually keep it forever and it will never go away. Give me 1 second. So sometimes I'll be memorizing and that'll happen and it's like,
Okay, get back.
stop talking. But it's good practice.
Turns out if you want to improve your memory, just have kids. You'll be forced to.
Just have kids. Yeah. You'll be challenged.
What do most people, when they stop you in the street or run up to you and say, oh, I have a bad memory, I want to work on it? What is that in relation to? Is it, oh, I keep forgetting names, or I can't remember where I parked my car, I keep forgetting where I put my keys when I try to leave in the morning?
It's all those things. I'd say the number one thing that people come to me for is names, of course. I forget names all the time, or I would love to remember names more in my job. I meet so many people and this would help me network better or create relationships, make more sales, whatever. That's the thing. People recognize what memory can do for their lives, which is good for me. It's the reason why I have a business doing this stuff, and it's an interesting time now because of AI and tech. People at the same time realize that they're getting dumb because they're outsourcing their intellect and cognitive functions. But it's just so easy to not use your brain. So it's this thing where people recognize that they should be memorizing something, but they don't. But I think in the future, there'll be more need for stuff that I do because I think people will, while it sounds attractive to have AI doing all this stuff for us, to offload this and that, I think there's going to be a point where we're going to lose a lot of our human abilities, and we'll want to reconnect with that. I mean, that's kind of happened in the past with everything. So I've heard some people say, like, this is just another one of those things and we'll just be better because we won't have to do certain things and we can just focus on more other things. But I feel like this is different. Somebody was comparing it to like the advent of calculators, like advanced calculators. Back in the day in school, you have to do all mental stuff or on paper. Suddenly you can use calculators in class. You don't have to do that. People were saying, oh, we're going to get dumb. We can't do this. But it didn't really happen. We just did other things with, with math, right? The little calculations we didn't really have to do anymore. It wasn't a big deal. But I don't know. I feel like it's different now and more of a serious situation.
You're more optimistic than I am. I feel like we're just going to offload it all to AI, especially with inventions like Neuralink. And I don't know if you've seen the show Black Mirror. There's an episode where it's all video and it's all stored in the cloud or wherever they're putting it. And they just replay whatever information. Oh, I need to recall where my keys were. Let me just watch the video when I put my keys down. And there it is.
I haven't seen that one.
It's crazy.
Do you remember the name of that episode?
I don't. It's a crazy episode because I don't want to spoil it. It's really good. You should watch it. I think it's in one of the earlier seasons. But I remember seeing that and thinking, oh, this is where we're going to go. This is it. We're just going to offload all of which definitely takes away some of our humanity and does make us dumber, I would argue, but I think that's where people are going to want to go.
Yeah. Did you ever see the movie Idiocracy?
No.
Oh my god, it's such a stupid movie, but it's so good. It's with like not what's Owen, Luke Wilson, Owen Wilson's brother. Um, but it's just about the future and how like I think he gets cryopreserved like in modern day by accident. The world basically forgets about him, and he wakes up 50, 100 years in the future, and everybody is just done, and he's a genius because,
Savant.
I mean, he's not, but comparatively, he's so smart. And it's just like a stupid movie, but it's like scary because it reminds me of how we are now. Yeah. Watch it if you have a moment.
I'll have to check it out. Yeah. But it feels like that's where there's a strong argument. That's where we're going. People just want to offload all of the heavy lifting rather than recognizing, hey, this is the only brain that I have and I'm going to carry it with me through life. As long as I'm here, it's here. Might be something I want to work at and try to improve.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's going to be serious health implications, like cognitive health implications, that we'll start to see in the next, I don't know, 10, 20 years. But then there was that study that came out recently about the effects of ChatGPT on the brain.
I was just thinking about that.
Like very shocking. I mean, not that shocking, honestly, but to see it, the effects of it on the brain, it's like, I mean,
bad omen.
Well, I heard it somewhere else, like, whatever AI is right now is like the worst it's going to be in our lifetime, so it's not going to get worse. It's going to get, better, like more advanced, but probably worse for us.
Yeah. Better at what cost, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy.
Do you play around with a lot of that AI stuff or ChatGPT?
That's the thing. I do. It's so helpful. It does free up my time to do other things. And I could argue that I am more productive in certain senses because of it and couldn't do it otherwise. I have it handle very menial tasks. I also have it bounce off ideas and help me with creative sparks. Do I wish I could come up with those creative sparks naturally? Sure. And I mean, there's times when ChatGPT has given me an idea, and I'm like, that's a great idea. Thank you, ChatGPT. And then, I did prompt it, so who fully came up with it? I don't know. But then there's been times where it gave me suggestions that absolutely suck, but they led to me thinking about something on my own, right? So was that me? Yes. I may have come upon it in another way, talking to somebody else or thinking about it longer, who knows? But I don't know. But again, I think we're in the early stages of this stuff. I think it's just going to be even less blurry. It'll be more clear that it's, not human anymore. That's making everything,
And we'll probably
play a
embrace
very little part in this whole thing.
Yeah. I think your calculator example is perfect because we are just going to hand over a lot of that lower level stuff. And then once it's capable of more, I think it's just going to take over. We'll just say, okay, remember everything for me. Remember my whole life. I know that OpenAI is working on some sort of carryable item. I don't know if it's like a necklace and it's ChatGPT and it sees everything and remembers everything for you.
Damn. Yeah.
Big brother, and you're just carrying it around all the time.
Yeah. I'm just going to be natural. Oh, natural.
You're going to be the savant that we look back on and like, is this guy from the future or the past? Where did he come from? He's just memorizing all this raw. He doesn't have any ChatGPT helper.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm busy, buddy. All right. I think I have to go. I apologize.
No worries. Thanks for sitting down and chatting with me.
Yeah, no, great questions. Great conversation. I really appreciate that. And, when this goes live, let me know.
Yeah. Do you want to plug any of your stuff where people can find your YouTube page, your books?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. I mean, if you just search for my name, Nelson Dellis, and maybe put the word memory, you'll come across my YouTube channel. That's where I post most of my content. Also on Instagram, it's Nelzor, Nelzor. And then my website, nelsondellis.com. You can learn more about me, see my courses, my coaching, my books, all that stuff. You'll be linked from there.